All right, guys, for my big game breakdown, let's take a look at Timberwolves Bucks 8:10 Eastern tip in Milwaukee. As of this recording, the Bucks 1-point favorites pretty much everywhere, with the exception of Circa, a noted sharper book, of course, who has the game aligned as a pick'em. Now, most teams in the NBA would probably love to trade places with Milwaukee, right? We're talking about a team that finished first in the Eastern Conference last season, currently third this season with a 33-18 straight up record. But flaming out in the first round of the last year's playoffs, coupled with what was perceived as a disappointing start to 2023-2024, that led to a coaching change. And our old pal, Glenn Rivers, is now in charge of the ship. And surprise, surprise, the Bucks are underperforming under Doc. They just finished up a 1-4 road trip that coincided with the coaching change. I made the mistake of betting the Bucks Tuesday in Phoenix. That was a somewhat snake-bitten selection. Both Damian Lillard, Brook Lopez officially ruled out about 2 hours before tip. And adding more injury to insult, Chris Middleton, he goes down with an ankle injury after just 8 minutes of action. Bucks played tough. They fought valiantly. They were even up at halftime, but obviously they faded down the stretch. They failed to cover the spread. Doc Rivers, ever the inspiration, said, quote, "You just felt at some point we wouldn't have enough offense on the floor, and that's probably what happened." So that is your Doc Rivers-led Milwaukee Bucks. And while you figure they got to be pretty desperate for a win heading into tonight, I don't like the spot. First home game back after a long road trip. I mentioned it was a 5-game road trip. They go 1-4. Last night, I faded two teams in a very similar scenario. Ended up cashing a couple of outright winners with the Pelicans +7 at the Clippers and the Pistons +13. They won outright at Sacramento. Both the Clippers and Sacramento, that was their respective first home games back after long road trips. Here, we don't have the luxury of taking that many points, but it's okay because I think Minnesota's a better team, guys. T-Wolves, they'll be motivated. They blew a 22-point halftime lead in Chicago the other night, lost in overtime. But the good news, 7-2 straight up, and ATS are the T-Wolves when coming off an outright loss as a favorite this season. And there's plenty to like about this team, particularly their defensive rating. They're number 1 in the league per Hollinger in that department. The Bucks, they're only 17th in defensive rating per Hollinger. And oh, by the way, they've been a disaster, have the Bucks at the betting window since the new year. 4-15 against the number last 19 games. In the last 5 games on that aforementioned road trip, they let opponents shoot 50% from the field. Lillard and Lopez, they could return. Keep an eye on their respective statuses. Middleton's definitely out. Bottom line is this, guys. A less than full-strength Milwaukee team coached by Doc Rivers is not as good as Minnesota. Look at the Timberwolves here.
Ralph Michaels with my NBA big game breakdown for February the 8th. And if there ever was a game that was called the eye test game, this is it for me. And I'm grabbing Golden State plus the points. Now, we know what the Warriors have done this season, and they've underachieved as far as what the expectations were. But this is still one of the most attractive starting lineups in basketball. And again, remember, they're just now playing with all their pieces parts as Draymond Green came back from his suspension. You look at teams on the road. Who do you want to back on the road? Well, you want to back on experienced teams that have team leaders that know how to shoot the ball late and put the ball in the basket. That describes Golden State Warriors. They're the number 1 team profit-wise when on the road in the NBA, going 14-8. But more importantly for me is since Draymond Green's return, you look what the defense has done. The defense gave up 50%, 5 of 7 games between the 7th of January and the 25th of January. In their last 4 games, they allowed 40%, 48%, and that was at Atlanta, a very good offensive team, 38% against Brooklyn, and they did play a very injury-depleted Philadelphia team and held them to 41 points. On the offensive side, they have top 50% shooting 6 of the last 8 games. Those numbers, 56%, 56%, 56%, 55%, and 50%. That is an elite defense. But when I look and say, if I have the Pacers, are they that much better than Golden State? And my answer is simple, and it says no. When I looked at Golden State this year, when they're a dog of 3.5 points or higher, they are not only a perfect 8-0 against the spread, but they have covered those games by almost 10 points per game. Warriors plus the points, healthy. No way I'm going to ignore that situation. Color me the Warriors today. Steve Kerr talked about, he goes, I don't think we need to do much in the trade deadlines. He thinks this team has the makings of something very special as they continue to play together the rest of the season.
Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, back with a big game breakdown for your late night TNT matchup tonight on Thursday at 10 o'clock Eastern, Nuggets and Lakers. And this is one of the better games of the week, probably one of the better games of the month, but not even the best game where they're going to face each other this season. The reason I say that, because if we fast forward to about 3.5 weeks from now, on March 2nd, they meet again. And right now, sportsbooks have the odds on when LeBron will hit 40,000 points. And the odds-on favorite at 3-1 is this game on March 2nd, the next time they play. So just something to keep an eye on. But it does look like they'll be playing tonight against LeBron and Anthony Davis. As always, they're both listed as questionable. That's just a kind of a set it and forget it on the injury report this season. But I do expect them both to be in the lineup. If you check the current prop market, you'll see Anthony Davis at 23.5 points, juiced to the over. LeBron at 25.5. Jokic, though, is the guy I want to talk about here. 27.5, and he had a triple-double when these teams played earlier this season at the beginning of the year, back on October 24th. The Nuggets won that game at home, 119-107, won by 10. And Jokic had a huge monster game, as he often does, with 29 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. Caldwell Pope had 20 points in that game, but he is listed as questionable tonight with a hamstring tightness. So keep an eye on that. He might not go, and that could be a little bit of a difference in this game. But I still lean towards the Nuggets regardless for a couple reasons. First of all, they're rested. And this past Sunday night, normally I wouldn't be watching the Nuggets play the Blazers on Sunday night, but that's what I do. I chime into games occasionally to get some info, and I actually found some info in that game. As I turned it on midway, Portland's winning outright despite being a 15-point road dog, and the Nuggets just didn't look that crisp. They had played Portland 2 days earlier on Friday. Maybe they were going through the motions, but they did turn it on in the second half, ended up winning by 9. But something about a month ago when I was watching a Nugget game also jumped out to me. Despite the good start, the defending champs said they were fatigued, and this was back in early January. So it's something I've kind of had on my short list, is looking for reasons to fade Denver. I don't think it applies tonight, though. They have not played since that game on Sunday night. They've had the last 3 days and nights off, so this travel was not much for them. They're well rested, and that's another reason why I think the Jokic triple-double prop is in play tonight against Los Angeles. And this is also, as I mentioned, the national TV game on TNT. And they're going to L.A. Teams get up when they play in New York. They get up when they play in L.A. And Denver is still the better squad. Now, the Lakers are starting to turn it on. I'm aware of that. 3 straight wins on their last 3 of this road trip. But now they return home off that road trip. 6 straight road games. And just a couple days back in L.A., the distractions. Ralph Michaels and I talked about it this summer with baseball. His son Jeff had the great stats about teams underperforming when they return home. And the worst angle in baseball was home dogs after the extended road trip. And the Lakers here are a dog tonight because they're the inferior team. So I think it's a decent fade spot for the Lakers. And keep in mind, their win against the Celtics as a 15-point dog was without AD and LeBron 3 games back. Just shows once again the amazing phenomenon when teams are shorthanded, how they overperform in the NBA. And yes, they did beat the red-hot Knicks and then the bad Hornets. This is a huge step up in class still against the defending world champs. Denver is rested. It's a focus spot, and I think it's a short number. I would look to lay the 3.5 in this game between the Nuggets and Lakers tonight. Totals around 229.5, 230. Maybe it has a playoff atmosphere, but I think the side selection is the best play tonight. And don't forget, I've got 2 strong college basketball best bets tonight, along with a bonus-free NBA play on my page right now. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
Okay, guys, before we get to today's best bet, just want to let you know I swept the board last night in hoops. Perfect 4-0. That included 3-0 in the NBA with some pretty ugly dogs. Charlotte, New Orleans, Detroit. What a trifecta there, all coming through. I'll let you know what I've got on the docket for tonight in just a moment. But first, let's talk about another ugly dog, and that is San Antonio tonight, getting double digits in Orlando. Now, last night in Miami, the Spurs faded down the stretch. They end up losing 116-104 as 7.5-point dogs. I was not on San Antonio there, but I'm going to back them here, getting an even larger number against Orlando. While it's the second night of a back-to-back for the Spurs, the situation, guys, just as tricky for the Magic. They are returning home following a 5-game road trip. I talked about this situation in my big game breakdown. Steve mentioned it as well with the Lakers. And you look at the Magic, they've been a great story this year, okay? They're competitive. This is a team that had largely been in the doldrums for many seasons, but they don't really have the odds makers' respect quite yet. They've only been favored in 16 games all season. Now, while they're a very profitable 11-4-1 against the number in those 16 games and 13-3 straight up, only 3 times this year have the Magic been asked to lay 9.5 or more at the betting window. Those 3 times all came over a 10-day span back in late November, early December. It was a friendly scheduling run that had the Magic playing mostly home games. Again, let's go back to what I talked about the spot. Here they've got to fend off that inevitable letdown, first home game back after the road trip. And it was only 48 hours ago, guys, that this Magic team was drubbed down in Miami, 121-95. So both these teams, in fact, are coming off losses to the Heat. For Orlando, it was a bad end to what had been an otherwise successful road trip. Magic were 3-2 straight up in those 5 games, 4-1 against the number. One of those stops happened to be in San Antonio, and they beat the Spurs 108-98 as 5.5-point favorites. They were up pretty big going into the fourth quarter. I concede that point. But the Spurs got next to nothing from their bench in that game. And generally speaking, Greg Popovich has this team, while they're not good, playing at least competitive. Last night, it was a 1-point game with Miami entering the fourth quarter. Prior to that, there was a loss to a Cavaliers team that's red hot, playing as well as anybody in the league. But 3 of the 4 games the Spurs were in before that loss to Cleveland were decided by 5 points or less. And since the new year, they're 5-1 ATS as a double-digit dog. Again, I don't think Orlando should be favored by this many, really against anybody. My best bet for the show is the San Antonio Spurs plus 10.5. And I mentioned at the top, I went 4-0 in basketball last night. Well, let's do it again tonight, guys. I have a 4-game package available at my page, wt.buzz/BP. 3 NBA plays. I just gave you one of them on San Antonio. I've got a college basketball play as well. We had a best bet in college last night with UNC Asheville upsetting High Point. Let's go 4 for 4 back-to-back nights. Best bet, San Antonio for the show.
Welcome back. This is Ralph Michaels with my NBA best bet. And before I get to my game, Steve, put on your boxing gloves. I'm going to fight you on this one. Earlier, Steve said that he may be talking about the best game tonight. That was Denver and LA. I'm talking about Detroit and Portland. So I think my game is more attractive than yours. You know, you want to talk ugly. 7-43 for Detroit, 15-35 for Portland. So the first thing I did is I went to the database. You know, having an 0-2 or 0-3 record might make you a losing team early. But when you look at game number 40 and on, when both teams have a win percentage of 35% or less, and one team is a home favorite of 2.5 or more, those teams going back to 2013 have gone 57%. It's not a wow number, but it does show you that 2 crappy teams, if a team is a home favorite of 2.5 or more, there is still that home court edge built in that they want to beat those bad teams. And when I look at the Trailblazers, you might say, wow, 15-35, they're horrible. But did you know since January 17th, they're actually 6-7 straight up. And they've gone 9-3 against the spread their last 12 games. We also have a Trailblazers team that didn't play with Brogdon last Sunday. He missed. Jeremy Grant has missed the last few games. He's expected back. For Detroit, you have the Pistons off a rare win. Yes, they are 7-43. But if they are off a win, they have not played well. They're 1-3 ATS, excluding 2 games as a double-digit dog. And when you look at the Pistons, they are actually playing decent as a team when they're getting a high quantity of points. I broke down Detroit, and Detroit is 12-6 as a double-digit dog, including 7 straight covers. But we don't have to worry about that. The Pistons are not a double-digit dog today. They're only 6-14 as a dog, up to 7.5 for a small favorite. They're in that role tonight. Let's also add in that they have no rest. When I have a team with no rest playing an opponent at home with at least 2 days rest from game number 30 on, they have covered 62.5%. So bad team against bad team late in the year with a home favorite. A rested home favorite against an unrested opponent, a 62.5% chance. Detroit off an anomaly game, off a road win, now playing with no rest against a Blazer team, again, which is 75% ATS their last 12 games and are as healthy now as they've been all year. Yes, it's going to be ugly, but if we could fade the Pistons and lay under a touchdown, we'll do that with the Portland Trailblazers. I did drop a 5% yesterday in college basketball. I had one play. I do have my NBA game of the week, 75% on these top-rated NBA plays. Plus, you're getting 3 bonus plays, 2 in college basketball, 1 in the NBA. Check it out, as well as check out my Super Bowl prop guide, wt.buzz/RM.
Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com, back here with a free NBA play for tonight on Thursday. Going to look at your early TNT game in a moment, but just a quick reminder, 2 strong best bets in college hoops. Now, I'm going to give you my top NBA opinion for free, a TV opinion here in just a moment between the Mavs and Knicks, but I want to talk about the college basketball because I have 2 strong best bets going tonight on Thursday, and I'm number 1 ranked since the college and pro basketball seasons began back in early October. In college and pro basketball sides combined, hitting over 60% this year, and I've got 2 strong college basketball side selection best bets going tonight on Thursday. Individually, they're each 25 or make a 2-pack for 29. You get the second play for just $4. Or consider that all sports, all access special for the rest of February, which works out to just $9 a day. That works out to just $4.50 a play tonight. Or the Super Bowl to Super Bowl special, which is just $3 a day for a full year of football, baseball, and basketball. And if you start now, you get the next 3 days and nights for free before Super Bowl Sunday. No promo codes needed. Check out those great specials and those 2 strong college best bets tonight. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. All right, let's get to a free NBA play tonight on Thursday. It's your early TNT game at 7:30 Eastern. Dallas Mavericks minus the 4 are worth a look. Now, there's a lot of uncertainty who's playing in this game, and that's why I made it a TV opinion only for you. Wanted to give it to you free here on the channel. But I do like the Mavericks for a couple reasons. First of all, if we check DraftKings early on Thursday afternoon, you'll see that there's only 1 player prop listed for either team, and that's Jalen Brunson. Yet even he is questionable tonight, and that's one of the reasons there are no other Knicks listed, because Brunson is questionable and with the right ankle sprained. Keep in mind, Julius Randle is already out. He's missed several games with a shoulder injury. On the Dallas side, Doncic and Irving are listed as probable. But once again, it looks like the sports books are being a little cautious. They don't have any Maverick team props up yet, which makes me think maybe they're more questionable than probable. But with that said, I like the Mavericks. Let's look back at when these teams just played less than a month ago, and we're going to see why Dallas looks like the stronger side. They played on January 11th in Dallas just about 3.5 weeks ago. Mavericks won that game by only 4, but they won outright as a 4-point dog because Doncic did not play in that game. But the 4-point win was misleading as they dominated the game. In fact, they got out to a 19-point halftime lead. In fact, they were up by 18 after just the first quarter. And digging into the box score makes me like Dallas even more tonight. Yes, they had the easy win without Doncic. Kyrie Irving, 44 points. Hardaway Jr., 32 points in that game. And look at the Knicks side. Julius Randle, who I'm not a big fan of. Those of you who watch the NBA show Religious know I think he's an overrated superstar, whereas I think Brunson may be the most underrated superstar in the league. Well, those two both had great games 3 weeks ago. Randall had 32, Brunson had 30. So they had 62 of their total 124 points, basically exactly half of the points. And they took more than half the shots. The two combined, Randall and Brunson combined for 45 of the 89 field goal attempts. So Randall is out. Brunson is questionable. And even if he does go tonight, I don't think he's fully healthy. Not a good setup for the Knicks, because those are the two guys that really hurt Dallas a few weeks ago, whereas Irving and Hardaway Jr. did their damage, and they might have Doncic tonight. They should have him. He's listed as probable. I like the Dallas Mavericks, and they're in good current form as well. Back-to-back wins entering this game. Actually used them as a free play video on Monday. If you recall here, we talked about that Philadelphia game. I thought Dallas would bring a good defensive effort after a terrible showing in their previous game against Milwaukee, and they've done that actually. They've held their last two opponents, the Sixers and Nets, to just 102, 107 points, 45 and 43% shooting. And I think they have another good defensive outing tonight. Take a look at the Dallas Mavericks, minus the 4. That's your TNT national TV game at 7:30 Eastern. Also have a standalone video for you on the Laker game between the Nuggets, the late 10 o'clock Eastern TNT game. Yet another reason to hit subscribe when you hit that bell here, and instant alerts for you, all the videos. But don't forget about the Super Bowl videos as well. Tons of game previews. Teddy covers went up today on Thursday. Mine will go up after midnight tonight for the full game preview. And then I'll have my NFL Fade the Public video as well this weekend. and also my college basketball top 25 video for Saturday on Friday night. So when you subscribe, hit that bell for instant alerts, thumbs up, like, and comment below. I read all the comments and I reply back. Who do you like tonight on Thursday in the NBA? Let's win together. And don't forget, go get those 2 strong college basketball bets on my page for Thursday night, and consider one of those direct subscriptions the rest of February for just $9 a day, or the all-year, all-sports 1-year special for just $3 a day. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.